That hiss you hear when a big rig comes to a stop at a red light. That sharp burst of air escaping is one of the most recognizable sounds on the highway. It is so common that most of us tune it out entirely. But have you ever wondered why that sound exists in the first place? Why don't 18-wheelers just use the same kind of brakes as your car? And why does that hiss actually mean the truck is stopping rather than speeding up? Let's dig into the historical, practical, and scientific reasons behind the air brake system on big trucks. Welcome back to the lost history of everyday things, where we delve into the fascinating history behind the things that shape our world. If you like this video, please hit the like, subscribe, and notification icons. If you have ideas for topics you would like to see covered in future episodes, please leave them in the comments. The story of the air brake doesn't actually start with trucks at all. It starts with trains. Back in the 1860s, American railroads had a serious problem. Stopping a train was dangerous and unreliable. Each car had its own brakes, operated by a brakeman who had to run along the top of moving rail cars, turning brake wheels by hand, one at a time. It was slow, it was dangerous, and it was wildly inconsistent from car to car. A young inventor named George Westinghouse changed everything in 1869 when he patented the air brake system for railroads. Instead of relying on human timing and muscle, Westinghouse used compressed air to apply brakes across an entire train simultaneously. And more importantly, he built in a fail-safe. If the airline broke or lost pressure, the brakes wouldn't fail open, they would fail closed, which meant a disconnected or damaged train car would automatically brake itself rather than go rolling out of control. This single design choice saved countless lives. And it's the same core idea that ended up under every semi-truck you see on the highway today. Westinghouse actually had to prove his invention before anyone believed it would actually work. In 1887, the Burlington Railroad staged a now famous test in Chicago, where a train fitted with his air brakes was run at speed and brought to a stop far faster and far more predictably than anything the industry had seen before. The demonstration was so convincing that within a decade, air brakes went from a novel gadget to a legal requirement for American railroads. The United States Congress passed the Railroad Safety Appliance Act in 1893, mandating air brakes and automatic couplers on virtually all interstate trains. It is a pretty remarkable journey for an idea that started as one engineer's attempt to solve a problem that nobody else thought could be solved. So, how did this jump from trains to trucks? By the early 20th century, trucks were getting bigger and heavier, and hauling serious weight over long distances. The small mechanical or hydraulic brakes used on early automobiles simply weren't going to cut it on a fully loaded big rig. Hydraulic brakes rely on brake fluid pushing through sealed lines to create pressure. And that works great for a car, but it starts to fall apart at scale. Hydraulic systems can develop leaks, and once fluid escapes, the brakes can fail completely with very little warning for a vehicle that might weigh 80,000 pounds fully loaded. That simply is not an acceptable risk. Trucking regulators in the United States eventually mandated air brakes for heavier commercial vehicles, and by the 1970s, federal safety standards solidified air brakes as the standard for trucks, buses, and trailers over a certain weight threshold. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because air brakes work almost in reverse compared to what most people assume. When you press the brake pedal in a car, you are creating pressure that squeezes the pads onto the rotor. No pressure, no stopping power. But in an air brake system, the truck's engine constantly powers an air compressor that fills large storage tanks with pressurized air. That stored air is actually what holds the brakes open, not closed. When the driver presses the pedal, air gets released from the tanks into brake chambers that push against a diaphragm, which then applies the brakes through a system of rods and springs. Honestly, this was the part that surprised me the most doing research for this video. I did not know that the air in the system is actually what holds the parking brake off, rather than what applies it. Compressed air is constantly fighting and holding the brake back. So that means if the truck suddenly loses air pressure, whether from a hose rupture, a mechanical failure, or even just being parked and shut off for too long, the air loss causes the brakes to automatically slam on. But honestly, once you think about it, that makes a lot of sense. It's not a flaw, it's the entire point of the design. Imagine a fully loaded trailer disconnected on a hill. If the system worked the opposite way and required air pressure to engage the brakes, A sudden air loss would leave that trailer with no way to stop itself. Instead, the fail-safe design means the truck or trailer can never just roll away unbraked. The absence of air is treated as an emergency, and the brakes respond accordingly. It is the same Westinghouse philosophy from 1869. Fail closed, not open, just applied with more than a century of engineering refinement. So why not just make hydraulic systems bigger and stronger for large trucks? Part of the answer comes down to redundancy and modularity. Air is compressible, which sounds like a downside, but it actually gives the system some forgiving flexibility. Air brakes can also be extended easily across multiple trailers using what's called glad hands. Those are the coupling connectors you see between a semi and its trailer that let air lines link together seamlessly. A tractor can connect to a trailer, add a second trailer in some configurations, and the entire brake system stays unified and synchronized. Try doing that reliably with hydraulic fluid lines running the length of a triple trailer combination, and you'll start to see why air won out. Air systems are also much more tolerant of small leaks. A slow leak in an airline might trigger a warning and give the driver time to pull over safely, whereas a slow leak in a hydraulic line can silently rob the brakes of stopping power until it's too late. This is actually why every commercial driver's license test in the United States includes a dedicated air brake component before someone can legally drive a vehicle equipped with air brakes. They have to demonstrate they understand how the system works, how to identify a leak by listening and watching the gauges, and how to properly conduct what's called a pre-trip inspection. Part of that inspection involves building up air pressure, then shutting off the engine and watching how quickly the pressure drops. If it falls too fast, the truck simply isn't allowed on the road. Drivers are also trained to listen for the distinctive sound of the system charging and releasing, which is exactly the psst you hear at a stoplight. That sound isn't a malfunction. It's actually a sign everything is working exactly as designed. The brake pedal releases a small, controlled burst of air pressure through the treadle valve, and the system re-regulates itself almost instantly. It becomes such familiar background noise for anyone who spends time around trucking that most drivers stop noticing it altogether, even though for the rest of us, it's one of the most identifiable sounds on the road. The color-coded hose system is another small detail that most people never think about. A tractor and trailer are connected by two separate air lines, usually running through what are called glad hands. The blue line is the service line, which carries the everyday braking signal, and the red line is the emergency line, which keeps the trailer's brakes held off. The actual lines are usually black, but the connection points or glad hands are color-coded. This dual-line design means that even if the service line fails, the emergency line and its fail-safe system design still provides backup protection. It's redundancy layered on top of redundancy, which sounds excessive until you remember exactly what's at stake when tens of thousands of pounds are barreling down a highway at 65 miles an hour. Now, you would think that with brakes on every single wheel of a massive rig and with multiple axles, a truck would be able to stop on a dime compared to a car. And this is another thing that genuinely surprised me while researching this. Like many people, I did not know that having more brakes does not automatically mean a vehicle can stop faster. It seems intuitive, right? More wheels, more brakes, more stopping power. But stopping distance depends on a lot more than the number of brake assemblies. It depends on total weight, momentum, tire traction, road surface conditions, how well the braking force is balanced across all those axles, and how quickly heat can dissipate from each brake without fading. A fully loaded 80,000-pound truck traveling at highway speed can need well over 525 feet to come to a complete stop in perfect conditions, compared to roughly 300 feet for a passenger car. And that is true even though the truck has far more brakes than the car. While more brakes means more surface area to manage the mass, but they don't defy the basic physics of weight and momentum. A heavier vehicle simply needs more distance and more time to convert that kinetic energy into heat through friction, regardless of how many wheels are doing the work. And if you add in wet pavement or low tread depth on the tires, it can take even longer for a truck to stop. This is actually part of why modern trucking regulations put so much emphasis on brake maintenance and inspection. Because unlike a car where a brake problem might just mean a longer stopping distance, a brake failure on a loaded semi can be catastrophic, given how much distance these vehicles already need under ideal conditions. Federal inspectors routinely check air pressure levels, brake chamber pushrod travel distance, and slack adjusters, because even a small imbalance across multiple axles can meaningfully affect how evenly and how quickly the truck slows down. Over the decades, the air brake system has continued to evolve. Anti-lock braking systems, or ABS, became mandatory on most commercial trucks and trailers by the mid-1990s, bringing the same wheel slip prevention technology that revolutionized car safety to big rigs. More recently, electronic braking systems have started to layer digital sensors and faster response times on top of the traditional pneumatic foundation. Some newer trucks are even experimenting with air disc brakes rather than the traditional drum brake setup, offering better heat dissipation and more consistent stopping power, especially in panic stop scenarios. Engineers have also worked to reduce lag time in the system. Since air has to physically travel through lines and fill the brake chambers, there is a small delay between when a driver presses the pedal and when the brakes fully engage. Modern designs have shortened this lag considerably, but it is still a factor that professional drivers are trained to account for, especially when following distances and reaction times are already tighter due to the sheer weight involved. Despite all of this innovation, the fundamental principle that Westinghouse landed on in 1869 hasn't changed. Compressed air holding back springs, a fail-safe by design, and a system that trusts physics over convenience. It's honestly a little poetic that a solution built to protect railroad workers running across the tops of moving train cars ended up saving lives on highways more than 150 years later. Every time you hear that hiss at a stoplight, remember that's not just noise. That's more than a century of engineering deciding that safety should never depend on things going right. It should be built to handle things so they don't go wrong. So the next time you're driving next to a semi and you hear that telltale psht as it slows down, you'll know there's a whole story behind it. While Plague-era brakemen have nothing to do with it today, the same instinct to fail safe rather than fail dangerous runs straight through both stories. It is a reminder that a lot of the systems we take for granted every single day were built by people solving very real, very dangerous problems, long before we ever thought to ask why. Thank you for watching this episode. If you have suggestions for our next videos, please share them in the comments below. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the lost history of everyday things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories that surprise us with their origins, designs, and stories of innovation passed down through generations.